Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, David. Not doing as well as the Houston Rockets and Indiana Pacers, the two hottest
Hmm.
teams in the league right now. Really ripping things up on both ends of the floor. And I want to start with this question first. Would you consider either of those teams, the Rockets or the Pacers, as legitimate title contenders right now?
I mean, barely, because I still don't think they have the experience. I'm really, um, I don't know. I have a bias for sure against just teams who haven't been there and gone through the pain, and the experience matters to perform well game after game after game. Hell, Indiana's got more than Houston does.
Yes, they got to a conference finals
They've
last
got
year.
And they've got two ring winners now, though. Thomas Bryant's a backup and didn't do anything when Denver won, but he witnessed it. Obviously, Siakam was a key player in that team. And they made like you said, they made the CF and they made the finals last year of the play-in. Like, I think that matters too. Houston, probably the better team, although right now, if they played a 7-game series, I think it'd be super close. I don't think Houston's easily winning that series, nor do I think Indiana would. And I just, Houston's so young.
So young.
Fred's got a ring. That matters.
Yep.
But most of those guys are, they're clueless to the whole thing. Udoka's been there, which is great, as is Rick Carlisle. So they're only contenders if other teams who just have much more talent and or experience fail, which is certainly possible with injuries and other things that happen. Someone's got to win a championship.
Yes, they do.
There are two. I heard someone talking yesterday. I don't remember. I might have been Windhorst. Like the Pacers and the Rockets. He didn't say this. He just said Indiana, but I'm adding Houston. They are not teams that you're thinking, nice, we got them in the playoffs.
Hell no.
Yeah. Whereas you wouldn't be as afraid to play some other teams that are ranked similarly. The way Indiana plays with that pace, especially after round one, where it's one night on, one off. And Houston's physicality and energy and the different ways they can beat you. Those are teams that I think are trending in the right direction. And we're going to be talking about them for some years now, I think. Both teams have a lot of young players.
Well, that's so interesting you say that, because this is sort of like the crux of this whole episode in this show, and it ties into the debate you and Henry were having about teams. And, look, the NBA is an interesting place, right? Because in one moment, you can look like, man, the future looks so bright for us because our runway's so long. We got a bunch of young talent. Everything looks roses. But yo, man, like random shit happens, not just to you, but to the 29 other teams too. And next thing you know, oh, wait, I thought we had a 5-year window in front of us. Now we don't anymore because our main guy got hurt. This team got way better. We didn't think out of nowhere. Like things are just constantly in flux. And I say all that to say, to me, the Rockets, because of the way they guard and that week they had where they beat Memphis, Cleveland twice, and the Celtics, I was like, Jesus. And David, you watched Houston enough up close. They don't ever stop giving multiple efforts on defense. And like that matters. That shit just matters. And they're so good at that. And so I wonder, because that defense is so elite, and to your point, they're young. They have the pieces. Is there something they could do to make themselves more title worthy right now? Like get that maybe proven playoff champion offensive player like a Stephen Curry, right? And then it's like, oh, now, Rockets, I'm in 100%. Is there anything like that you think they could do?
I don't think you're asking me the question you want to ask me. It's a great point you're making. The question you want to ask me is, should they? Because we know they can.
Yes. Should they?
They have with their draft picks.
Yes.
I mean, Amen Thompson would return a.
Oh my! Well, okay, but I don't know if I want to get rid of him because he's so fucking good.
Hold on, this is what I'm saying. So, can they? For sure. Should they? Definitely not. I wouldn't move anyone. Henry is fascinated with the idea of moving Jabari Smith Jr. I mean, boy, what if he blows up somewhere else? And you're like, oh my God. I think, you know my philosophy.
Yes.
I say 50 games, win 50, 55 games a year, and you're going to give luck a chance to happen every fucking year while your fans celebrate. And it's your games are going to sell out.
Mm-hmm.
Your road games are going to be good ratings on your local TV, which matters. There's going to be a vibe in the community when you're playing.
Yeah.
Talk radio and all of it, because you're typically winning games. You're winning 60% or so of your games. This team should be doing that for a while. And their highest, well, I guess Jabari's right there too. Reed Shepherd doesn't play.
Correct.
But he's going to pencil in for Fred in a couple years.
Yeah.
Not that I think Reed likes that.
Right.
But that's the reality of it.
Well, you Reed wants to be something better than Fred VanVleet's really fucking good. Like,
no, that's not what I mean. I mean, he doesn't want to wait 2 years to do it. Yeah. He could be better than Fred. Although, like you said, Fred's really good. Fred's an all-NBA level talent right now.
Yes.
He's playing to that level. He may not make it, but he's to that level. So again, with Smith Jr., I just think that they should sit tight and just keep getting better. And you can improve on the margins if you don't sacrifice anything in the future, because you may be sitting on an OKC level kind of team without a Shea. Although Amen Thompson, if he ever learned to shoot, I mean, he could be Shea Gilgeous. He can't shoot, and it's a real concern.
Yeah,
but he's an all-star level player starting next year without being able to shoot. That's how good he is.
David, and I love this because I was talking with somebody about this yesterday, and it's like, what do you do if you're Houston? Because again, my point being, and we'll talk about a team that was once thought of as, ooh, the runway's so long, and now I'm not so sure if the runway's as long as it once was. Amen Thompson, oh my God, like they've unlocked something, it seems like, with him, because now he's in dunker spot, getting points. He's probably gonna make an all defensive team. I'd be shocked if he's not. On an all defensive team.
100%.
David, like, they might have unlocked something with him. And if he's just like, cutting, getting shots, and again, to your point, learn to shoot. And I don't even mean to be like 38%. Like, my God, can you get to 34% from three?
Right.
Like,
it's going to be, listen, I could not have been more wrong in challenging the Thompson twins' zeal for competitiveness because they went to overtime elite. I'm not wrong that I think there were better options for them. Right. I'm completely wrong that they're not competitive. They are very competitive.
Oh my God, so
I watched his brother last night. And also, I mean, you could have gone to Duke or Carolina. I'm not sure they've been better any faster than what they are, because Amen especially has been. He's just been a revelation. In the playoffs, it's a different animal.
Yes.
They're not going to guard you, Amen, and that's going to fuck with your brain some. It's going to be weird. Now, he is uniquely built as a non-shooter because of his athleticism. He still gets involved in transition, his ability to play in the dunker spot. You can't just ignore him like you do a lot of non-shooters, because he's a big, tall, athletic guy. He's a cutter. Mm-hmm. He's an offensive rebound crasher. Mm-hmm. So you're going to not guard him easily.
Right.
There's going to be a tax to pay for that. But there also might be a benefit in clogging up the lane for the other things that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And Houston's offense could really grind down to a halt if that's the case, and you just clog the lane up more. So Dylan Brooks have to make some shots, and Fred's going to have to make some shots. And, Şengün may not have the same passing lanes because the paint's more clogged. Mm-hmm. I could see them being upset in any of the rounds this year. Nevertheless, going forward, the light is shining strong.
So it's interesting, right? And we kind of talked about this in our chat. So then I was like, I want to bring this up on the show. Regular season is important, right? Because it gives us data about what the team is doing. 82 games worth of data, right? That's what you get from a regular season. But to your point, the playoffs is very different. So, David, it's almost as though everything you take from the regular season is not applicable for the playoffs because, to your point, it's matchup dependent and you're playing just one team possibly 7 times in a 10-day or 2-week span. So to your point about Houston, it's like, they beat Boston in a one-off. They beat Cleveland twice in 3 days. Okay, sure. But if they have to play Boston 7 times in 2 weeks, you're still like, no, Boston's just better. They'll figure out a way to limit a lot of what Houston does.
Well, one of the things about the playoffs in what the format you're describing, where you're playing every other night, or first round's a little bit different, finals are a little bit different, but the older guys get smarter faster. There's way stickier brains. So I mean, I look back at my own career as a coach, how dumb I was when I thought I knew what I was doing. And then 5 years later, I'm like, oh my God, I caught this so much faster than I did before. I've seen it all before. I know what's coming. I know when you call timeout, I know what play you ran last time. I know you're going to think I don't remember it. So I'm sorry. I know you think I'm going to remember it, and you're going to have a counter to it.
Right.
And so now there's going to be another counter to it.
Right.
And I'm going to coach my guys up for that. Yeah. If I'm coaching against a good coach anyway, I wouldn't have thought that. I didn't have the 3-dimensional chess mind when I first started coaching. And there's a lot of examples of that. These players are the same, if not way, way, way smarter. So Houston's stickiness going from game to game, adjustment to adjustment, won't be as good as a lot of the other teams they might face. That being said, with an injury or whatever, who knows what will happen. But to me, get as much experience as you can with this group. Bring it back next year.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to trade guys at the deadline next year too. But I wouldn't do it all. I wouldn't do anything crazy this year at all.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Raphael Stone and Houston, they're not going to do anything crazy. I think it's actually, they even maybe come out publicly and said it, like, no, we're going to rock with this team, see where we are. Because in many ways, they're quote unquote ahead of schedule, even though I don't like using that term, because I'm like, what does ahead of schedule mean? Like, you're good when you're good. Like, when you take advantage.
Yeah. Well, Henry talks about, I think he got it from Sam Hinkie. I could be wrong on that. He talks about how until you're really favored, in a sense, you're one of the top ones, which maybe they are. They're just so young. That's normally not the case like OKC is, where you're really young and you're a real favorite. Don't get your cap, your salaries way up and mortgage your future a little bit for now. You wait for the right time. I don't think it's the right time for Houston or Indiana for that matter. I think both teams are trending in the right direction. We've seen teams trend up and go down before, but there seems to be some consistency. In Indiana's case, they did make the ECF finals last year.
Yep.
And that included a Game 7 drubbing in Madison Square Garden.
Sure did.
Blowout. We don't see that too much. They've barely, they got blown out in Game 1 in Paris by San Antonio, which was a Wembanyama home game, which is fine. But in that game, I remember listening to the commentators saying how Indiana's almost trailed for no minutes in 2025.
Yeah.
Well, since then, they led wire to wire and beat the Spurs by 37. And I could be wrong. I don't think they trailed in the game against the Pistons yesterday.
They didn't.
That'd be back-to-back games against solid teams. Certainly in Paris is, San Antonio is like a quadrant 1 NCAA tournament game.
And Detroit's good.
On the road. Detroit's good. I mean, I was really happy with Detroit yesterday. They're tough. They got blown out, and I was impressed with them. That tells you how good Indiana is. And Indiana's starting wings didn't play. Mathurin or Nembhard didn't play. And they still blew them out. Siakam went crazy because he's a problem. If the last time they played the Pistons, when Detroit was rolling, this was 2 weeks ago, in Detroit, they decided to play Duren on Miles Turner. Duren doesn't like to leave. He's a beast, by the way. He doesn't like to leave the paint. So Miles Turner could rain in threes at the top of the key, his best spot. And Siakam, guarded by lesser men, went for 26, 7, and 7, I think, and destroyed them. So yesterday, I noticed right away, they got Duren on Siakam. That's not going to be wise. They must not have seen Brook Lopez try to guard Pascal, and he scored 37 in Game 2 against the Bucks. And he had 37 last night, zooming by Duren, or made 4 threes at a 7. And the game was competitive. It was not a blowout. It ended up being, they were up 20-18 late in the game. I think they won by 14. Siakam was plus 32 in 31 minutes, which means they lost by 18 in the other 16 and a half minutes. Nevertheless, he's on their team. Tyrese played great.
Yeah, he's been playing better.
That. And this is just, they keep on keeping on. They've got wins at OKC. They've got they've won the series against Detroit 3-1.
Yeah.
They had the series against Boston 2-1. I don't think they play again. They've just drubbed Cleveland by a lot on the road.
Sure did.
And their only 2 losses this year are to OKC in a great game in Indiana, and to Cleveland, who's terrific.
Yeah.
This is a team that's moving in the right direction and also young and up and coming.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on them because they started the year so poorly.
Yeah.
And so people are like, oh, whatever. And, a lot of people are thinking fluke. And I'm like, no, guys, that team's real.
No.
It's not a fluke. The only thing I wonder, David, is that Nembhard and Halliburton they're younger. Pascal is not old, but he's older.
He's 31 on April.
Right. So the timelines are not quite there.
Well,
with the three of them.
I thought about that, and maybe next year something has to happen if they're not trending in the right direction still.
Mm-hmm.
But Siakam's a unique, almost 31.
He's
like
a young 31-year-old. Yeah.
He's having a career season.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah.
This is a two-time NBA player who I was actually looking at a bunch of numbers this morning, is having a significantly best season ever.
Yeah.
Should be named an All-Star today. But he's 13th in EPM if you eliminate Luka and I think Wagner, who won't qualify.
Played. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
He's going to make All-NBA for the third time.
For sure.
So he's trending in the right direction. Miles Turner's in a contract year and kind of has figured out his role. Thomas Bryant is a perfect backup to him. And they've got Mathurin, who's having a best season by far. And Neesmith is a perfect fit. Ben Shepherd had 4 or 5 threes yesterday in his second season. Yeah, TJ McConnell played great yesterday. He's been more up and down. I can see them want to upgrade that backup one for next year. But no, and Tyrese is 24.
Yeah.
Nembhard's 25.
Yeah.
Matthew's 22. Yeah.
A young squad.
They're set. And they don't have a first-round pick this year. And Obi Toppin's good.
Obi's very good.
He could be traded. I could see them trading him.
But that's okay. They don't have a first-round pick because, to your point, and we'll talk about your article later, you get a second-round pick who can play.
Yeah.
That salary is not going to fuck up your cap, and now you have someone who can slot in, be good. Like, so that's, I imagine, at least I don't know who I'm sure that's what the GMs are thinking in Indiana. That's what we got to do going forward.
I've actually spoken to someone from that franchise about that very thing. Like, you guys have the luxury now of looking for who can best help us, period, end of story. Who cares about 6 years down the road?
Right.
First of all, you're not having a lottery pick anyway.
Correct.
So we don't need – they drafted Johnny Furphy last year, who I actually really like. He can't help them. Right now, he's 19 years old. He's got a chance down the road, I think, to be a very good player. Think Gordon Hayward without the shooting right now, although he made a bunch of threes in the G League, I was told yesterday. Rugged, tough Australian kid who's just got to get some skills, but he knows how to play. He's got a good feel. So, yeah, they got to take some kind of – they probably need one more defensive dog. And so whatever guard wing they can find in the second round – yeah, they'll probably draft a guy like that. Yeah, they're both those teams. Like as we see some of these teams like the Lakers and Phoenix receding down, they've already passed those guys. I could see them really kind of moving in those. Like next year they'll compete for a top 3. They'll probably Indiana finish with 4th or 5th with Milwaukee this year if they stay healthy. No,
and that'll be a nice playoff series, a rematch of last year.
Oh my God,
yeah. And I would like Indiana in that series. Okay, David, when we started talking about Houston and we talked about the runway and how the NBA changes, that leads me to a team that everyone knows that I follow and root for on this podcast, the Memphis Grizzlies, who 3 years ago, David, looked like a team that I was like, oh, the future looks bright for a long time.
Two seed 2
years in a row.
2 years in a row, right.
And they had the Ja Morant gun situation and a year last year where they were ravaged by injuries.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, David, they're not old, but they're not 22 either, right? They're 25 years old now. Bane's 26.
Triple J 25?
He's 25. Ja's 25 and Bane's 26. So they're not old by any stretch.
No, they're not trending right to their peak years.
They're not 22 either. And they're third in the West currently with that core I mentioned of Ja, Bane, and Triple J. And they have young rotation-looking players in LaRavia and Santi Aldama, and they have draft capital and all this stuff. I feel though, like David, that it's like, players that were born in the era of the big 3 in tennis of Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal. It's like you're just unlucky. It's not that you're not good. It's just that for you to win, you're more likely have to beat 1, if not 2 of those guys, and that's probably not going to happen for you. And I feel like that's where Memphis is headed right now. It's like, ooh, they're peaking, but shit. Okay, see, Houston's coming up from behind. So I do wonder, like, are they a contender first in your mind? And if they're not, what's the trades that they can make to get themselves closer to contender status?
Yeah, I have them in the same boat. They have some experience in the playoffs, but not enough to my liking to make them think. I mean, again, contender. Yeah, they're good enough to give themselves a chance. to be all three of those teams are. If you're a top 4 team, for sure,
you have a chance.
Even top 5. I mean, Miami made it a couple years ago as a 6 seed. You have a chance. Things have to go well for you. You're not going to be favored in any of the games,
right.
at least not after round 1. So I think they're there for that. I happen to like their coach very much too, and I'm writing about them next week. Their offense is a fun and interesting, a pivot away from a lot of the pick and roll stuff we talked about that everyone runs. I still think that their asset collecting and player development is what they probably should be focused on. In fact, I think I sent you a trade.
Yes, Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith for Marcus Smart.
No, not Dorian Finney-Smith.
I'm sorry. And Daron Sharp for Marcus Smart and why am I guessing? I've got the trade up right here.
Zach Edey, I think.
Yes, Zach Edey. Yeah. I would imagine maybe a draft pick. No, although maybe not.
Oh, no. For sure, draft picks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never mess with a draft pick because that's all negotiated. 1, 2, whatever.
Yeah.
My thought process was, if you're Memphis, you're in the asset allocation aspect of this. Less worried about necessarily one fit because you've got some other things you have to do. But like OKC getting Hartenstein was a double whammy. Maybe he can help us right away playing next to Chet. We don't really know.
Right.
They didn't do much together.
Right.
It was an experiment. I mean, Cleveland's playing 2 bigs, and Chet shoots a 3, so that helps. But someone's got to guard 4s. And I don't know who's going to do that with them. He's an amazing backup if Chet goes down, which he did. And also at that price of $27 million, I think was what I'm making this year. We can move him for another all-star level player when a team's desperate for a big. We can maybe 3 teams will be involved, whatever. I feel like if they can get Cam, and they won't be the only ones bidding for Cam. And I don't know that that's the best bid. I'll tell you what I'm thinking in a minute on why I put it that way. Then they're in a position of either using Cam to play next to Bane and Ja, and Triple J could be the 5, go small, they can't play the 4. I think that'd be probably even their best lineup. He's clearly could be one of the best 5 players. And if it turns out we need a better fit, different player, well, he's going to be movable going forward. He's playing great. Hopefully he wouldn't play bad for you. Brooklyn, I don't know what they're going to be offered for. Memphis going to have to throw in some picks. I like Zach Edey. Not that I don't think he's a good backup for Memphis, but if you're Brooklyn, you're trading Claxton. If you're trading Cam Johnson, you're trading Claxton. And now you've got a cost-controlled center. Who knows how good Zach Edey can be? You want to lose anyway. So he's going to hurt you in some cases because he's so slow. But he's shown that he can do some things. And he's cost-controlled for the next 4 years at a non-top 5 pick price.
Yep.
And Smart gets off. I think he's got 2 years left on his deal. You probably can move him as soon as the team's desperate for a high-level point guard that wants to make the playoffs or wants to go higher in the playoffs. And then you throw in the picks, whatever. That's what I thought. Brooklyn may get a better offer than that, but it saves them some money and it gives them a cost-controlled center. They can move Claxton and not have no one at the 5 because Sharp will be gone also.
I love it.
In that deal.
So given how you're thinking about how teams need to be looking at the draft, you mentioned that Memphis has to be in the asset allocation and player development business. They took Edey at 9 in last year's draft. In your mind, given what the team was going to look like, assuming Ja was going to be healthy and Bane and Triple J, would your thought process have been, we move down and get a player much more capable of helping us win now, as opposed to Zach Edey, who could be good, but to your point, as you said to me all year, if this team is designed on a deep playoff run, I don't believe Zach Edey can help them this year doing that.
Yeah. I don't remember the draft as well as I did back in June. That question is answered with if there's someone that they think could do that. And just I'm always believing in trade down, trade out. Don't take a pick if you don't think it's going to work out for you. Just if you can. There's no guarantee anyone will take your pick. They may all agree. Normally you can find some suckers. And it may work out okay. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in trading down. That's, to me, if you think he can at least be a serviceable backup at that price point, I think that's fine. You might get lucky, like the Pacers are paying Thomas Bryant minimum. That's lucky. He's worth a lot more than that, and they're going to have to pay him probably this summer. They want to keep him. Some backup center number is going to be higher than the minimum.
Yeah.
Memphis bought themselves that. And I with upside, if he can shoot the 3, you could probably hide him defensively in some soft zones and soft mans where He's not having to leave the paint very much the way the Pistons normally try to do Jalen Duren. When they don't, they get scorched for it. So I don't think it was a bad pick, but this draft coming is loaded. I understand that it's loaded. From what I've seen, it's loaded. And there's plenty of guys that are going to be 22, 23, maybe even 24 that have been around a while and have learned everything you can in college and will come in and have a real chance to help your team, certainly by January.
Yeah, and look, there are things about Edey that I like, namely he's just a huge man, right? And that matters in this game.
And a hard worker.
My God.
He went from terrible to the best player in college for 2 years.
Yep.
That is a testament to a really driven, ambitious young man.
No doubt. And he has some nastiness to his game in that he doesn't take guff and attitude. Draymond tried to punk him one time. He was not having it. He backs up. He sticks up for Ja Morant. Like he's got that edge that I think you need. You know, they had Steven Adams before, who is one of the great rebounders and tough guys in this league. He isn't quite that yet, but getting there.
There's no one like Steven Adams.
He's a special breed. I do see the problems though they'll have with him in the playoffs, David, when he's on the floor. When teams target, I'm like, you're just too slow. Like you're gonna get cooked. Like I just see it now. And it's gonna cause the defense to be in major rotational crisis to protect him, and I can see some issues there. But you know, we'll see what they decide to do going forward with that. You mentioned that you're going to write about the Grizzlies next week. I do have I don't want to spoil your article, but I do have a question for you. You mentioned they are running less pick and rolls than most teams do right now.
Yeah.
Ja Morant is one of the great drivers and benefiters of having a pick set for him and getting downhill. Do you think that them not running enough? Okay. All right. You knew where I was going.
I shouldn't say so unequivocally. Your question is, would he be better with more ball screens? It's a great question. Yeah, I'm sure Taylor's thinking about this all the time. It's possible. To be fair, it's possible that it would be better. There's some balance. Can we agree on that?
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
There's some balance of not having screens on the ball. The thing is, Ja really doesn't need screens.
He's so good.
So incredible. Like Derrick Rose. That way, you just can't stay in front of him. So I think you need to mix and match, which I think is what they're doing. I'll know more when I study more this weekend. He needs space. And he's little. And so the one thing about ball screens in our league, it's like watching the SEC now with much worse players. Everyone's huge and athletic and long.
Yeah.
It's like really watching professional basketball, which, by the way, it is. The SEC is destroying everyone because they have all these athletes at the size positions. You can't go in the first box and expect to get much. And it's a more crowded game anyway. Well, Ja, with tall guys around him, isn't as effective. He can't make the same passes, the same shots. You got to give him some room, which is why probably Taylor decided to bring on some people to help him make that transition to a less ball screen focused or ball screen centric offense because he's little. Yeah, and I think so far anyway, it's worked out really good.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and I'm really looking forward to that piece because I know on Memphis Grizzlies Twitter, so many of the Grizzlies fans are like pulling their hair out. Why don't you run more ball screens for Ja? They feel like Ja's being neutered in the offenses because Jaren's gotten better, but they're like the three of them aren't playing well together yet, and everybody's like, and I'm like, guys, let's take a deep breath. They're still third in the West with everyone not clicking yet. And David, as someone who does player development, you know, I think it's hard for the average fan to understand when you are shifting and changing an entire offensive structure over and shifting the way you play. It takes time and reps to get comfortable with it. Like, guys, they just implemented it in training camp to start this season. I know it's halfway through, but, you know, my favorite example I love using when David says to a player, how long is it going to take from a good ball handler? 4 years. Like, it takes a while.
Only if you were good in college. Right. 6 years if you're not. It's just, this is the conversation I have all the time. It'd be great if we could just wave a magic wand. Yes. I don't have one. Yeah, I don't have one. It just, there's nothing else to do but just every day. I don't know if I told you, I spoke to a player the other day who had, I think, been a little loose with the ball. And so I recommended before every game, and this is a starter, not a starting point guard, but a starting player who dribbles a lot. But he has another guy on his team that dribbles a lot more. And I said, you need to do about 10 minutes of ball handling on game day in pregame prep. And I reached out to one of his assistant coaches and told that coach he needs to do 10 minutes more every game day, right before the game. And then the player called me after a particular game where he did well with his handle, and he was literally laughing, saying, I don't know why, but it fucking works. I feel so much better when I drove before a game. And first thing I said to him is, I've been coaching longer than you've been alive. So I'm not surprised, but it's a hard thing. And it's almost like priming the pump a little bit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Golfers don't go on the golf course
and just
don't get
swinging away.
Putts. Right. I mean, professional golfers.
Right.
They get their putts in, they get their chips in, they get all the clubs in the bag in. And yet, and in the NBA, as someone who goes to a lot of 90-minute early and 2 hours early shooting sessions before games, they just shoot. Fine if you just shoot in games. Right. But for those of you that are dribbling, the one exception I always make is the primary ball handler will have 500 dribbles in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Right.
It'd be smart for them to do it, but they're going to catch up fast. The other guys, they may go into this late second quarter before they've dribbled more than twice in a possession. You got to get that work in. You got to prime that pump. It's hard. This game is hard. It takes a long time. To your point, with 5 men trying to figure it out, and by the way, the other 5 guys trying to stop us.
Correct.
So we have to figure out what they're doing and how do we counteract what they're doing. And then they're going to counter what we're doing. We got to counter their counter. That's the offense you're trying to figure out. Yeah, it takes a while. Yeah. They only get a week of practice in training camp.
Right.
And then very few practices. The games are the practices.
Right.
That's the way everyone has to remember. The games are the practices in the NBA.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see they're number 4 in offense in 2025. Memphis is number 4 in offense. And I think I'm right when I say that. Yeah. So it'll be even better next year.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It just takes time, right? You have to work those muscles and get comfortable with it. Because as I always say, as David point, you have 5 bad guys trying to stop you. When you are in moments of crisis and stress, you revert back to what is comfortable and familiar, right? Yeah. And the new offense is not familiar yet, right? So that's why you might see some disjointedness, and because it's not like second language to them yet. Once it becomes that, then that's what they'll be able to rely on. But you panic sometimes when you're in a crisis situation, right? It's just nature of human beings.
And so let's think about that. Your excellent point about crisis. The NBA is not like college, where if you mess up, you're yanked. Typically, Jason Kidd maybe has an argument with me. Not always, to be fair, not always, but often enough. I feel like, come on, Jason, leave me a little bit longer. Last night, I was talking to a player today who played a good amount, and I was surprised that he played. And he's like, well, so-and-so got beat backdoor and coaches had enough. And so that just adds to these guys all know at some point, it's the straw that broke the camel's back, we used to say when I was growing up.
Yep.
We don't say that much now, but it's the one extra Jenga thing you're pulling out and the whole thing topples. And so there's pressure and so to your point of the new thing, the stress, now I'm going back to the old thing. It's because you want to be conservative because you won't want to get yanked. Because when you get yanked out of a rotation, you may not get back in. Which is what I told the player today. He said, I probably won't play today. I said, no. You played well.
Right. Now
this coach has reason to now try you because the other guy fucked up.
Right.
So this is the nature of our game. And there's so many good players and they feel the pressure.
Yeah.
And so, they want to do what they've always done, even though that's probably not the best thing going forward because the coach wants to see the growth that he's implementing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, folks, we'll be back after a brief commercial break. All right, David, I teased it earlier in the show, but you wrote a fantastic article that came out this week. The NBA draft turned upside down. The right player is no longer based on pure potential. And I loved it. It was, I love all your pieces, but this one was great because it ties into what you, Henry, and Travis have been talking about for the last month. It seems like, at least on our calls, I know much longer than that, but on our calls, this idea of the league is constantly changing. There are a bunch of teams that have no money and have to shed salary and picking up these lottery picks that might be 25 point per game scorers in 4 years. Like, yeah, I get all that. And that sounds great. They're going to cost you a shit ton of money. Meanwhile, if you're a team that's like, and I love this one piece you referenced in the article where it's like, I'd rather have the college player who's 23 years old, who has gone through 10,000 pick and roll defensive situations because I know I put him on the floor. He knows how to play pick and roll defense. And I'm like, yeah, like get guys who can help you play now. The poster child for that in many ways was Cam Johnson, right? Everyone freaked out about where the Suns drafted him.
It's true.
And it was like, he's so old. And it's like, that doesn't matter. Like, he knows how to play. And the Suns saw it. The Nets are seeing it, right? Like, he just knows how to play. Yeah, he's never going to be Jalen Green. Fine. I got guys on my team who can already do that. I don't need that.
I got news for you. Jalen Green may never be Cam Johnson.
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of impact on winning, Cam Johnson much more impactful on that end of the floor.
Yeah. And in my piece, and we can talk about it here, I'm not saying you should never draft the potential guys.
Right.
Amen Thompson's, we already mentioned him today. There's no Lucas. Right. Cooper Flagg is going to have some problems. Not that he won't be good. He's a pretty unique player. There's Lucas don't exist. The teenager.
These guys don't exist.
Yeah, the Wemby's right. He had 7'4" guys. Yeah, good luck drafting that next guy. He's not going to be around for a while. You got to take those guys, especially if two things. If you are a bad team and you're just collecting talent, you want to keep losing and develop it, great. Or if you're a great team and have so many picks that there's no one that's a veteran college player that can add to your rotation, but I can get a young guy and maybe in 2 or 3 years he can develop, or I can move him. Great. That's fine. But after that lottery or so, taking the experienced player that's been through everything, and part of my reasoning was also based on the amount of hours you've spent evaluating the player. So toughness is a talent. We all want that DAWG dog, right? We want that tough guy. It matters. We talk about this with my players all the time. That's the thing they most get upset about, is when a teammate just doesn't make a tough play at a winning point. Well, it's hard to figure out who that guy's going to be when they're 18 years old in college for a year. Yeah, it just is. You may see an example. That doesn't mean that's who he's going to be typically. Right. You know how you see 2-3 years of it where he just keeps showing up. I'm going to talk about this player right now. It won't be the last time I talked about him. There's a kid that plays at Alabama named Chris Youngblood. He was the MVP of a South Florida team, which is my local team, who did not make the tournament last year. They got upset in the conference tournament. They won their league, which was a good league. Not a great league, but a good league. He's Josh Hart with a 3. Oh. He does everything right. He was injured for a long time, so he's not had a great season. He's healthy now, and he kicked Mississippi State's ass last night on the road. Alabama won again. And he had 20-some-odd points, but he does all of the other things well. And someone's been able to watch him for 4, maybe 5 seasons. I'm not sure which one it is. He should be well evaluated. You should know, this guy is going to be Josh Hart. He's going to get the big, tough rebounds. He's going to be diving on the floor. He's going to be holding teammates accountable when he's just a role player because he ain't afraid of anybody. That matters. Holding players accountable is a big deal. Yeah. Big fucking deal. You hear players talking about it. They get frustrated when no one else will hold a player accountable. Yep. Coaches sometimes are afraid to. So it's nice to have the player that will. So I don't know if Chris Youngblood's going to get drafted. My son coaches there. I have no connection to Chris Youngblood. He won't be someone I'm working with, I would guess, although I do like him. But he's going to make some team very proud. He probably starts as a two-way player because teams are stupid, and he's just keep making the right play and the right play and the right play. And 5 years from now, we'll be talking about a guy starting 6-man, whatever, just like Josh Hart for a playoff team because they can't get him off the damn floor. Guys like that. I'd rather miss with a guy like that than miss with a guy that's had a couple good games here and there. We have no idea about his future, and he ends up just doesn't have that toughness, doesn't love basketball. There's a lottery pick from the recent past whose head coaches told me, I don't know if he loves the game. I talked to one of his teammates, same thing. And the kid's super talented. Not sure if he loves the game. Never going to make it if you don't. It's a hard fucking game. You got to work and work and work and be a glutton for film and all of that. And be tough in the game itself. I think veteran players give you that. And I didn't write 10,000 ball screens. I wrote 1,000. But maybe it's closer to 10,000. I'm not sure. It's a lot.
A lot.
Because they remember, colleges practice year-round.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gluttons for punishment.
They're drilled and rehearsed in it. If it's a good program and good coaching.
All year. They're doing it ad nauseum, unfortunately. But yes, they're doing it all the time. And so there's so much more schools than these guys that play 1 year of college. Yeah, no, I think, again, that is just – there's so many guys like this Chris Youngblood guy, right, who's out there. Oh, yeah. Like, the world is full of them. It's, again, can your talent development staff not only have their eyes fixated on the shiny thing that, this guy could potentially be – yeah, we know those guys. Everybody knows you're not doing anything unless you have one of those guys. We all know that. But that's one guy. I got to fill out the other 13 spots on my roster with other dudes too.
right? And I think being able to see who were guys that we cannot keep off the floor. I referenced this podcast, the Young Man in the Three, because JJ Redick is no longer on it because he coaches the Lakers now, with Tommy Alter and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane were on the podcast. And they were talking about Jalen Wells, their second round rookie draft pick. And Tripp said,
my pick for rookie of the year today.
Mine as well. And Tripp said about, they call him murder. He said, one thing about murder, he guards. And if you can guard, you're going to be on the floor. And David's just said, oh, that was music in your ears when I told you that.
I've been saying this for, I'm doing this a long time. You can't embarrass the coach's beautiful offense. Don't fuck the offense up. You've got to be able to guard your position. Help is a different story. That's a whole nother animal. But if they're just going to, because they're going to come after you. Mm-hmm. And if they're successful, I just can't play you.
Yep.
So there are rookies who can, I remember the first time some of my rookies went up against stars. And after the game, I'm not exaggerating this, after the game, I'm watching the star talking to my rookie. And I'm always curious. And I'm talking like James Harden level star.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, Harden one time said to one of my players, like, where'd you play in college? Which I thought was kind of bullshit because I feel he knew. Yeah. Because he was a pretty famous college player. And he's like, dude, you're going to make it. You really did a hell of a job on me today. And the player called me and he said to me, was he fucking with me? And I said, I don't think so. Possibly. It's possible. Yeah. But I watched the game. You were not easy to score on. And I think he was giving you props. Yeah. This was Harden doing that. I'm sure other guys do the same. Yeah. So then I knew, okay, we're going to be good. This guy's going to be fine. He's not getting picked on. And so you got to be able to do it. Yeah. So Jalen Wells, he guards. You have to do it. Yeah. And you can't tell if a guy can really guard after a year in college, typically, or that he's going to be able to if he can't. Mm-hmm. Maybe he'll be amazing one day, just because he couldn't as a rookie. Whereas you see a guy that's, in his third or fourth year that's guarding every night, not taking possessions off. Yeah. I was talking to a college coach, college GM 2 days ago about a prospect that I think should be a late first round pick. I don't know if he'll even get drafted. And I said, what surprises you most about this guy's up for like awards and everything on a great team this year. And the coach, I said, what surprised you? Because he was a transfer player. He said, the way he embraces conflict. I'm like, oh boy, I don't know what that means. I wrote to him. We were texting. What does that mean? He said, this guy came in. We were a top 25 team last year. He came in as a transfer to a settled team. And day one, he was like challenging dudes. Now, this guy was a hell of a player when he came. And it's completely transformed our team. He holds everyone accountable, himself included. Coach yells at him the most in film session because he can handle it the best, even if he doesn't deserve to be yelled at. Right. We just pick on him. The other guys all know. And I'm like, that's music to my ears, man. That's the goal that these NBA teams need right there. Yeah.
It is. It's so interesting because, to your point, right? You got to be able to guard to be on the floor, and guys like Harden and other stars. And I love that too. And I can definitely see sometimes because I'll, be like, oh yeah, they're definitely giving that young player props for like how they competed. Yeah. We talked about Amen Thompson, like does not take plays off multiple efforts, just like. And the thing about it, and I've always said this, if you're going to be that kind of defender, like young Jalen Wells is showing, you almost have to be kind of a crazy person and kind of a little weird in your brain because there's nothing fun about guarding the other team's best offensive player. And that shit sucks. Like
it's hard.
Stressful. They're constantly coming at you all the time. And when they score, you can't be like, and that's what I think impresses me the most, David, especially for a young player. Like Jalen never, if a guy, he doesn't freak the fuck out about it. Like it's just
who Amen?
Jalen Wells in particular, but like Amen too.
Jalen Wells, yeah.
Okay, next thing, and it's like you can almost see like the brains, like, all right, okay, I saw what you did there. Let me try again next time. Like that ability to not let that shit bother you, like that's a skill. Like because that will bother most people.
I was talking to a very young, talented defender who wasn't playing much, and Booker was roasting his teammate.
It's Devin Booker. Fuck you gonna do?
And he turned to one of his assistant coaches. The guy just told me the story, and he said, "Man, I'd be locking that dude up."
I love that.
And then, like he said, 15 seconds later, he win the game, and he did great. Like he knew he could really guard. Yeah, I don't know about locking up. Right, he did a good job.
Right.
You have to have the courage, and then you got to be able to follow through, or you're just talking shit. Yeah.
Oh man, it's beautiful to watch. I really love when guys can do that. David, the Clippers played the Spurs last night, and it's the third quarter, maybe the fourth. On a play, Wemby blocked Ivica Zubac at the rim, and Zubac got mad that a foul call wasn't made. He thought there was a foul there, and it's typical when guys are complaining at the ref. The action's going racing down the other end because you're too busy yelling. And so he realized, shit, I'm behind the play. So he charges into the lane. And because you're already angry and mad and whatever, because you're one, you didn't get the foul call. Two, you cost your team because they're down to 5-on-4. He charges into the lane and knocks Wemby over. By the way, foul not called on that play either. Wemby got up, got pretty mad, went charging towards Zubac. The Spurs players held him off. After the game, Wemby talked about it, and he said, look, it's not so much that, like, it's just about Zubac. He said, it's everybody that's doing this to me. And at some point, he's like, it's not my job to do politics, but, like, are the refs here to, like, police this kind of thing or not? And David dropped it into our chat with the lovely caption of, heavy lies the head that wears the crown.
Yeah, what do you think about it? I'll give you my opinion. What do you think?
I do. Look, the refs do have it, like, on a play like that, because I rewatched that. You got to call a foul there. Like, what do you, like, come on. That was not a basketball play. He was behind and charging in. You have to call and protect Victor in that scenario. Now, in the regular flow of the game, players are going to do that to Victor because there is a perception they have that he's weak in terms of, like, muscular wise, but he's not very big. So we're going to try to bully him physically and see if we can take him out of his game. And it's on him and the Spurs to have the tools necessary to go, hey, man, this is what they're going to do to you to try to take you out of your game. You have to counter that and be better. And that's what all the great players do. He's only in his second year. I'm sure he'll figure it out over time.
Yeah. Listen, Shaq used to be skinny. Not this skinny,
right.
Skinny. And then he wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I would guess he was the most fouled player in modern NBA basketball. Probably. Shaq was. Mm-hmm. And mostly managed to keep his temper just fine. Mm-hmm. This is how it is. The superstars get calls for sure. Mm-hmm. They also don't get plenty of calls because they get fouled that much more because they have the ball in their hands more and everything else. He's a target, but this is... I don't mind him speaking out, though. Yeah. He's an All-NBA player this year.
Sure is.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, maybe first team.
Very well,
maybe probably first team.
Might be, yeah.
Go as of right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got 40, 38 games, whatever. Yeah. So I'm not. There's no violin playing for me, buddy. That's what the money's for. That's what the fame is for.
That's what the money's for.
They fucking played a game for you in Paris, pal.
2 games.
2 games, right? So yeah. They're going to get a couple knocked over things that don't get called, whatever.
No, it happens. David, we are in silly season / trade season coming up now. So all these things are going to be coming up now about who's going where. We talked about Butler last week. De'Aaron Fox's name is coming up. Zach LaVine. Names that the De'Aaron Fox one, to me, it didn't surprise me. I was more like, what's going on in Sacramento?
He's denying that he wants to trade. I think I've spoken before on this. I've got strong ties inside there who I have not reached out to them once this year. But in the past, like, De'Aaron is on board 100% with what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Now Mike Brown's gone.
Yes.
The team's playing better. Mm-hmm. Can't argue that. I've never had a player not like Mike Brown, not in a long time anyway. But it didn't work out. They're playing better. They do not have to rush to trade De'Aaron Fox. If they get a deal that blows them away, great. Otherwise, wait and see what can happen. There's no reason to rush it.
So De'Aaron, I will say, to tie in Henry's point about if he's not the guy to lead you to a title, and we would both agree that Sacramento's a long way away from being a title contender.
They're not a contender, yeah.
He's 27. And so if by the time you're good enough to win, how old is he going to be? 29? 30?
Well, but I can push back on that. I understand Henry's argument, and not the argument with me, because we argued over Scotty Barnes, Henry and I did. Fox is a little different. I think, how old is Fox
27.
Now? Yeah, so much older than Scotty's 23, I think. So that's a little different. But you can go find another. I mean, Sabonis is an all-star.
Yes.
You've changed coaches; they're playing better. I mean, listen. I don't think the DeRozan thing was great. Like they've made some bad moves.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Pacers are really good. And they brought in Siakam when he was 29, turning 30. And it's really jump-started their franchise. I don't know what moves would be to do that. To me, if I'm Sacramento, I'm open.
Yeah.
Open for business.
I agree.
If you give me a hell of a deal for Fox, great.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, I have a hell of a player. I've just got to do a better job developing my play. Keegan Murray, kind of flatline. I haven't looked what Keegan Murray has done lately. Let me look right now.
I think he's flatlined. Yeah, no, I'm with you though, David, because you're at that precipice point now. If you're going to get back a lot of young talent and a draft haul, then yes, I say do it, because your rebuild will happen quicker. Because again, you're not in a position to win right now, and he's already 27. Like, remember when I started the show talking about how it looked like certain teams have a long run. This team was just 2 years removed from being a 2 or 3 seed. Right? I mean,
they were 3 seed.
Right.
They lost to Golden State. They were 3 seed versus 6, I believe.
Right. And it looked like, Sacramento, next young and upcoming team. Well, down since then. Like, this league changes so fucking fast on a dime, man. Like, and if you're not, and really what we're talking about here is if your organization doesn't have a clear plan with what they're doing, you're going to get passed. And they're already passed. Like, they've been passed.
I tell you, the guy that I'd love for them to get is Jabari Smith, because I think Keegan's not the best guy next to Sabonis. I think you need an athletic four, a rim protecting some degree anyway, 3-point shooting athlete next to more of the solidly built, unathletic, comparatively speaking, Sabonis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a guy that I would look at, and it's not going to be easy to trade for him. So
I don't even know if they have the capital of the assets. They may not even have.
And there's no point in, because by the time they help you, Sabonis may not be anywhere close to what he is now, which is a fair thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of in purgatory a little bit. But I think there's more than one way to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just know this. Taking the approach of we have to move Fox is a mistake. Be open to it.
Yeah.
See what you can get. Or also what else you can bring in for some of your guys that aren't working out so great.
And I think to your point, it's fair, right? Like, it has to be an overwhelming offer. If you get that, then for sure. It'll help you rebuild. Adam Silver was on Dan Patrick yesterday, and Dan had asked him, what are some of the crazier things that you guys have talked about inside the NBA of changing the rules on? And so I think it's important to preface it with this context, because you know how the internet is these days. People see a clip and they don't have the context before what the answer was. Everybody loses their godforsaken mind about what was being said. And Adam said they've tinkered with going to 10-minute quarters. And just as you would imagine, David, everyone had reasoned, measurable takes on the internet about that. No, they didn't. Everybody lost their fucking mind going crazy. And I'm like, calm down. Like, why are we, like, there's no need to get this. First of all, it's basketball.
What was their complaint?
Like, nobody wants that. Just like everybody yelling and screaming. And it's like, okay, calm. Like, it's first of all.
Adam Silver says something else, which is the shorter game, meaning elapsed time.
Yes, 2 hours total run time as opposed to 2 and change and all that.
Yeah.
And look, I'm all for that. And to me, here's the larger issue that I have, and I know you agree with me on this. The NBA doesn't have a quarter problem is too long. The NBA has a problem with promoting its product. They do not market and promote their product well. That is the issue, because we agree that this is the time where the league has been as deep and as talented as it's ever been, and there's so many good players all over the place. But your broadcast partners in TNT and ESPN do a shit job of telling fans why this league is so awesome and why they should care. Focus on that, as opposed to, if we cut the quarters, a couple minutes, that might make it better. It's like, hey, I got a car and it's not running. Let's change the tires. How about we check the engine and see what's going on the inside, right? Like, and I think that's my issue with the NBA. It's like, you market the game poorly. Like, your biggest and most important ambassadors play a game called Who He Play For. And yes, it's funny, whatever, but not to the casual fan that's who you're trying to care about. Not sickos like me and David who watch all types of games.
Well, think of it longer term. If after this media deal is over, I don't know how long it's for.
11 years.
Okay, so I'm hoping to still be working 11 years. If the ratings don't do well and the popularity goes down, because the NBA, I think, leads the sports world in consumption of social media stuff.
For sure. By far.
Okay, by far. I don't know that much, but yeah. and there's value to that to some degree.
Yes.
I don't know how you monetize it. They think they do.
Of the 4 major North American sports, because I don't know where world football and that plays into it. I'm sure they probably do better. So yeah.
And Grand Prix, whatever.
Yeah.
So if it goes poorly and these teams are getting soaked and the networks is not doing, these networks are getting soaked. Well, then what are we going to do instead to try to make it a more interesting product? Play 5-on-4 power play instead of free throws? Yes.
Yeah. Right. Whatever. Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time on the line. That can't be good for TV, and especially in the distracted minds of our populace today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I don't want that, although I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. I would love to experiment with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to experiment with every time you foul, it's a 30-second or whatever. We do drills all the time in high school where you start off on the side, you play, and then X number 5-6 seconds in based on what you're doing, you throw them in there because 5-on-4 is what happens in the game all the time. 4-on-3, 3-on-2.
I mentioned it. Teams do it to themselves on purpose all the time when guys are yelling at refs because they didn't get a foul call. You do it to yourself all the time.
Right. So, in hockey, the guy skates in after the power play. We can do the same thing. I think we should be experimenting with it for sure. I think we should do an all-star game where no one shoots free throws except for the one-shot free throw. I don't mind that one shot. It also gives them a little chance to rest because it's a fast game.
Mm-hmm.
But anything, if it's not just a one-shot free throw, we're doing 30-second penalty, whatever. It could be the more flagrant the foul, the longer you spend, whatever. That might be interesting and fun. It's really dramatically changing the game, though.
For sure.
Whereas if we just go from 48 to 48, people normally complain about records.
Yeah.
Asterisks exist in our keyboards.
Exactly. Correct.
I don't want to put the health of our players and the health of the game at risk because we're worried about records from the 1900s.
Right. Who cares?
And I was alive in the 1900s, and like as an adult, even. Yeah. I'm up for. I don't love the idea.
Right.
I'm fine with it. I don't care. Whatever's best long term to serve our sport.
Yes.
I want to be open to any potential change.
That's ultimately where David and I are. We want the long-term health of the sport to be good. Yeah. And I just want to add about that the new 11-year deal the NBA has with its broadcast partners now being ESPN, NBC, and Amazon Prime. I don't know how the marketing of the game is going to be any different because all the same people are getting recycled over to those networks. So it's going to be more of the same if you ask me, but time will tell.
For more money. I read an article saying that it's costing people more money to have all their streaming service than they did having cable, which I think is pretty funny.
It's just
cable doesn't connect to their phones though.
No,
and that's the difference.
Yes, gotta have things on your phone. They can take
their streaming wherever they go.
No doubt about it. All right, David. It is our favorite time of the program on Thursday. Top 5.
Okay, I wrote it down. I forgot.
All right, who is on your 5? It was a tough one this week.
I don't love anyone right now. So I'm going to say I'm not going to be recency biased and mention Indiana. They're not quite there yet. I think I'm going to put the Knicks there.
I have Knicks on my 5 line as well. Who's on your 4 line?
Okay, I've got Houston at 4.
Oh, you ready for this? I dropped them bad because they've just been playing okay lately. The Celtics are now on my 4 line.
Yeah, they're 3 for me.
Cavaliers are 3 for me.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 2 for me. I've got what did I say with 3? OKC is 2.
Okay, the Rockets are 2 for me.
Wow, and then
OKC is number 1. Yeah, for me. Yeah.
OKC's they did lose last night.
They did lose last night. I know, but I was like, whatever. Yeah. It's
to Golden State
after Shea dropped 54, 52, 54, something like that.
And it wasn't because of Curry.
No,
it's really amazing.
Yeah,
Looney at 18.
Yeah, no, they Golden State. I mean, look. Okay, it's like the one-off, right? They're gonna have these games where like, oh look, I don't think they're a serious team that's going to be doing anything.
I don't either.
If they even make the postseason, which
where are they at now? I got it right here.
They might be 10th, maybe.
They're 11th.
Oh, right. So I mean,
people talk a lot about how stacked the West is. I think going, at least if you go top 6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the West has anything on the East. I just think they're deep.
I mean,
Detroit right now is number 8, and so is Dallas. This Dallas team,
right, with no Luka, yeah.
Honestly, I would pick Detroit over this Dallas team without Luka in a 7-game series. I really would.
I agree. In the West, I mean, anyone below the Nuggets, are you really like,
right?
And that's me. Right. I'm like, I don't. And the Nuggets are 4, so I don't really trust anybody really below
and the trade deadline is, 8 days away? February 6th, is that right?
Yeah, yep.
So we'll find out very quickly if anyone can do anything to jump in.
Well, some GM is going to convince his owner that we're one move. It's good because what happens all the time. We'll see. I happen to think that most teams are not one move away, but we'll see. We'll ultimately see what happens. All right, folks, enjoy the weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care.